Early in the morning, as the sun is dawning, I go to the well to get my water today. Get my wood from the bush to make my tea, and eat my bread till I fill my belly. Then I get ready to go outside and play. Get my friends from next door to run with me to...
For many years, the Bahamas have been known all over the world as the paradise under the sun. The sparkling turquoise waters, sandy beaches, beautiful sunsets, food and adventures captivate tourists. But is this really Bahamian culture? The Bahamas is a multicultural country comprised of numerous nationalities. What is a Bahamian?
I think the definition for what is or who is a Bahamian would be a divided or a debate in itself. For some persons, being Bahamian is being born to Bahamian parents. For some, it's being born in the Bahamas. For some people, being a Bahamian or what is a Bahamian really translates to someone who appreciates Bahamian history, Bahamian culture, that speaks the Bahamian dialect.
A Bahamian is someone who comes here and decides to make the Bahamas their home. And that means that you start to make your life in these islands, and your life takes on a certain shape, a certain rhythm, because you live in these islands.
There are features of our creation, for example, that define us. The way we relate to each other in families, for example, the kind of work we do, our customs relating to marriage or lack thereof, birth and death customs, for example.
I would say that the Bahamas is a potpourri, or a mixture, if you will, a creolization of various cultures, various peoples from all over the world. But if you put the word Bahamian in the definition, it would be those persons living in the Bahamas that express themselves with the unique cultural expressions of the Bahamas.
With the invasions of other cultures, it is becoming even more difficult to identify what Bahamian culture really is. Is it possible that the Bahamas is losing its cultural identity? Or is it that the Bahamas has never had one?
I would like to look at Bahamian identity as something that is shifting and something that is changing as we build our nation.
You have this trend in the Bahamas to search for things as uniquely Bahamian. We identify them as such because they don't exist. We believe they don't exist anywhere else, and that's the definition for Bahamianness. That is sheer madness. It is a complex of things, many of which we may share with other populations, especially those our nearer neighbors. You take, for example, the conch salad. Conch salad is offered in other places, especially some areas of the Eastern Caribbean.
So, as the nation changes, as the nation progresses, I would say that part of Bahamian identity is, at the moment, an acute awareness, a conscious awareness that Bahamian identity is only vaguely defined, and that maybe more important than knowing who we are is the question is asking, who do we want to be, or who do we want to become?
Check it out. When records get hit me, man, I feel it in my bones. So much love for the culture. Oh, I just can't leave it alone.
Culture in its broadest context is everything that we do. It is our way of life. It is what we believe. It is how we act, our reaction to certain things.
Our music, our dance, the way we eat, the way we talk, the way we move.
The way that they prepare their food, the way they bury, the way they court, the way they marry, the way they worship.
Our system of government, plaiting the maypole, we are speaking English.
There's even a Bahamian formula for writing the obituaries. I make a lot of fun of it in some of my writings.
The way they recreate, their festivals, their art, their music, their folk tales, their legends.
Junkanoo, like bush medicine, like the way we conduct our funerals.
The baby must be bouncing. The settlement in which the child was born always is beautiful, and so on. There is definitely a stylized Bahamian version of constructing those obituaries.
Our straw work, lodges, and all of these things. Asu.
Going to dirties for some crack conk is culture. Standing on a rock and fishing is culture.
The mourning, the meeting, the wake, for example, where people will fill the house and the family has to cook continuously to be able to offer drink or something because people come to mourn with the family, for example.
The Bahamas is really a product of Africa and Europe. So it then means Bahamian culture is really a fusion of African and European.
When we talk about culture, very often we remember only the African side. We have a lot of traditions today that were brought to the Bahamas by the British also.
We have African practices and we have European practices. We'll see African music that has now evolved into things like your rake and scrape, your soca, etc. And then you have your European style or European cultures influences our dress, that influence our worship, our religion. African has also influenced our dance, it's influenced our food.
There's a combination of factors, of things, of environment, of customs. When put together, they make us a distinct people among other peoples.
Bahamian culture is the culture, the way of life that we develop in these islands.
Music has always been an influential part of Bahamian culture. Although some of it was adopted from other cultures, we have made it our own.
The only original music that we know of that came out of the Bahamas is a sound that was defined by the late Clement Bethel in his work, Music of the Bahamas, called rhyming spirituals. And the basis of those was a call and response. So it's really not uniquely Bahamian because it's African. But the rhyming spirituals were when the men would go out on the seas to fish, and they were to pass the time by mostly quoting verses from the Bible, and they put music to it. And so you came up with a sound called the rhyming spirituals. Most of them are based in religious themes. And today, the most prominent group of that ilk would be the Regent Bells.
Music is one of those things that despite modernization, urbanization, has been able to survive. 75 years ago, rake and scrape was something that might happen on a Friday night in the schoolhouse. Some things we used to do, like quadrille.
The quadrille dance, for example, is a fusion of African rhythms and European melodies. The Africans of the day used to mimic the landlords and the persons who from Europe, the minuets or the foxtrots or the waltzes, and they put rhythm to it, and you come up with something we call quadrille.
But quadrille, ain't nobody really trying to do the quadrille at the party. That's, it's some special event or plot the maple. You see what I'm saying? But people will still dance and do the rake and scrape and skull and so on.
When the various musical influences reach the Bahamas, it's an exchange. We also have given the world the Junkanoo beat, for example. It underlies so many modern songs, people don't even realize it. But when a people get a hold of something, they add to a thing and make it uniquely theirs.
Rake and scrape music, you would know, once again, you will have the foundation of the drum beat. You will have the saw that was raked and scraped. So it created a sound that we now create on the hi-hat. So you still have those same rhythms, but you're not using the same instrumentation.
Rake and scrape has been able to survive because the commercial artists have been able to bring it into the modern day.
Definitely, I try at times to incorporate rake and scrape in the music. Me, Soldier Shadi, and Sammy Star and Sosaman did a song named "Welcome to My Hood" where we infuse the John Canoe rake and scraping with hip hop, reggae, and
Junkanoo is the national cultural festival of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and it has been documented in our islands for over 200 years, begun by enslaved Africans in the Bahamas who used their 3 days holiday at Christmas time to reaffirm the fact that they were human beings by recreating their festivals and rituals from their motherland. And so over the years, that grew into what we today call Junkanoo.
In the Bahamas, as was elsewhere in the Caribbean, the creativeness of our people, we created our own instrumentation. The saw, which was regularly a carpenter saw that's taken with a steel bit or something like a knife or a fork or a screwdriver, and you will rake it and you will scrape it to the rhythm of the drum beat. They used to have something called a tub bass, which is the bass, the tub of a tin tub turned upside down with a string and a cord, and that was your bass. So, and then of course you have the shakers or the maracas or the tambourine or even the hand clapping. When there were no instrumentations, the body became the instrument. And you see a lot of Africans, they clap their hands. There's something, especially in churches. The hand clapping is to keep the pulse and to keep the rhythm. Instead of the drum beat, you have the hand clapping or the tapping of the body or the chest or wherever.
When I was but a young boy, Mama used to say, learn all you can, boy, prepare for rainy day. Please stay in school, boy, hear what the teachers say. This poem from the Royal Reader will help you on your way. If you strive to nail a right, boy.
Folklore is the culture of ordinary people. The cultural expressions and creations of ordinary people. So, for instance, it would be proverbs that get handed down.
Folklore is the expressive, relates to the expressive genre of a culture. So we're talking about storytelling, for example.
Hard-head bird don't make good soup. Or loose goat don't know how tight goat feel.
Put man mass head.
You pick till you pick needle without eye.
Some things afoot, probably dangerous.
These are little crystallizations of wisdom that our people have coined and created over the generations and passed down. That's folklore.
Folklore is to be found among folk, mainly people who are not in the academic mainstream, rural peoples who don't have writing books and all of this. And because too, this is not only peculiar to Africans, but people, rural peoples all over the world, you may not have access to paper nor time to write things down. So your culture, your way of thinking about life, these are transmitted to your children through folklore.
For instance, if you look at folk tales, for instance, right? Stories of Ibuki and Barabi, which were really, many of them coined in Africa, in West Africa, and they simply happened to survive the Middle Passage and survive slavery because our people thought that these stories could be useful to their children and useful as a means of entertaining themselves. Books that were published around the turn of the 20th century that tried to record these tell stories about, say, for instance, Ibuki and Barabi and the keg of butter. Or when Barabi plays Godfather. These are stories which were recorded in the late 1800s, early 1900s, but people could still tell them today. They've been around that long.
In doing research and employing the folk traditions in work that is accessible to Bahamians, you're going to ensure continuity. But we haven't done too good a job at creating national institutions that will be the sort of focal points for this kind of thing. We should by now have an institute for folklore research, but it resides in individuals like myself, and nobody pays much attention really. People outside do more. I have been invited several places abroad to talk about this. Other people see the value in it, but our people need to be encouraged because they find more entertainment elsewhere and just don't see the importance of preserving these wonderful traditions. You have to change that. We all have to work together to change that.
Bahamian art, now that's been up for debate for a long, long time. Many persons believe Bahamian art is sand and Poncianas and the beach setting or some fancy landscape, but not that is not Bahamian art. Bahamian art is that and more. Bahamian art is that, and there's contemporary art, there's drawings, there's minimalist kind of work. Bahamian art is, first of all, art done by Bahamians, not some London artist coming over to the Bahamas, painting a Ponciana tree and selling it off as Bahamian art. That's your art, sir. That is London art in the Bahamas. And I believe that the distinction should be a Bahamian must do the art. Whether it's a painting or drawing, a sculpture, whatever form of art it is, that is Bahamian art. Once it is a Bahamian creating the art, Bahamian art. I'm a big fan of art history, and a few of the what I want to call celebrities, but they just like patriarchs in art. One most notably is Brent Malone. He's one of the favorites of mine, especially when it comes to drawing. Brent Malone, I think his contribution to art in the Bahamas is significant because he kind of pioneered this whole notion of carrying art to students, and I think that is important. I want to call him an art evangelist. So, because it was that impactful. Also, you can't forget the three B's, Burnside, and Beadle, Jackson Burnside, and Stanley Burnside. They were, I would say, 60s, 70s art.
They live in the sea. They feed all of me. They so slimy. They are scrumptious as can be. The fellas them the sea.
When you think about our fashion as Bahamians, we always have to appreciate that our people unfortunately have been influenced by so many other countries and cultures that the average Bahamian, if you ask 100 Bahamians, 70% to 80% will say really we're more influenced by American style, European style, or Jamaican dress codes. In the last 20 to 30 years, it seems like the American culture, American fashion has really taken over the Bahamas. So you'd find the young men with the baggy jeans, the big t-shirts, that's an American culture. And a lot of the pants hanging off the hip is actually a prison culture. The airing in the air is a prison culture. But we, as Bahamians, we see it so often and we think it's fashionable and trendy, and then we in turn adopt it nationally, and you find 80% of the young men dress that way. You find a lot of the women now are dressing a Jamaican style, which is a lot of the colorful hair and the colorful clothing. And we then embrace that as, oh, that's now Bahamian. That's Bahamian. Tourists would come to us and see us dressed with the big pants, t-shirts, the girls with the colorful hair and the colorful clothing, and think, oh, that's Bahamian fashion. Really, it's not Bahamian fashion. It's dress styles that we've seen through Jamaican culture, Jamaican fashion, to the American culture, American fashion, that we've now started to accept as ours and making our own. To me, Bahamian fashion has always been influenced by other countries. If you really try and decide, okay, what is Bahamian fashion? I think it's hard to define what is Bahamian fashion because we've always been influenced, no matter who you look at and how they dress. It was not some Bahamian that came up with that dress code. It was a dress style that came from Jamaica, America, or Europe, and we've just started dressing like that. And because we see 50 other Bahamians doing it on a Sunday at church, we think, oh, that's Bahamian culture to wear a big hat, but really that's European. Or we see it's Bahamian culture to braid your hair. That's really African. It's not really a Bahamian thing. So Bahamian culture to me is really influenced, Bahamian fashion is really influenced by external factors, and for the most part, American, Jamaican, European. I think there must be at least 8 Bahamian clothing lines right now that are really trying to push Bahamian designs, Bahamian sayings. And while there might be 8 designs or so, I think personally, as one of the owners for 242 People Clothing, it's a constant, not even an uphill, it's an up mountain battle, because you have a country that's being so entrenched in dressing American or relating to Jamaican that your local designs, your local depictions aren't really appreciated as you would expect. I know for 242 every year, between May to July, we release 3,600 items every year since 2009. The first year we sold out within 4 weeks, so it's like there's a market for Bahamian designs, Bahamian fashion, Bahamian sayings, etc. You had the fist, which depicted the uprising of the Bahamian people and our independence from England. You had a Bahamian symbol like the blue marlin and the flamingo. That person saw, they gravitated towards it, they loved it, it sold.
I'm proud to be a Bahamian. I'm proud to be a Bahamian. God gave this land to me. I'm proud to be a Bahamian. I'm proud to be a Bahamian. I'm proud to be a Bahamian. God gave this land to me. I'm proud to be a Bahamian. God gave this land to me.
Preservation of the Bahamian culture is going to rest with the people of the country. Culture is nothing more than the way we do things in our country. The unique expressions of our people is what your culture is. The food you eat, the music you hear, or you play and perform, the dances you dance to, the way you talk, the way you paint, the way you walk, etc., the clothes you wear. Of course, we are invaded daily by the various art forms of cultures that are very powerful cultures, particularly coming from the north of us, and also to a lesser degree from the south of us. We're going to have a strong foundation to hold on to what we call Bahamian culture.
We are surrounded by super cultural powers. The United States to the north, we have Cuba, Haiti, and Jamaica directly to the south of us. Here we are, only 300,000 people in that ring of supercultures. Each one of those countries have millions of people in their population. We don't even have 500,000. So to my mind, we need a cultural program, we need a cultural plan that will preserve our culture.
It would be so different for the continuation of our Bahamian culture and the preservation of our Bahamian culture. We as the young people learn to appreciate our role to carry on our culture. Our grandparents have done their part. It's now left for us to carry it on. It would be amazing for us to travel, get into an airport in Chicago or New York, and everybody be looking at us saying, wow, check a Bahamian, wow, they from the Bahamas.
It is not just what we put in the National Art Gallery or we put on the stage or we put in a showcase to show off. It's what we do every single day that keeps us uniquely Bahamian.
Being Bahamian is what defines us, whether through our music, food, speech, folktales, practices, and way of life. Although we may be diverse or influenced by other cultures, we are still distinct from others. So, no matter where you are in the world, remember to always be proud of being a Bahamian. The only way forward is through unity. I am proud to be a Bahamian.
I's a Bahamian, and I don't like say nobody gonna spend my money when I go to my grave. Yes, I's a Bahamian, don't wanna make no fuss, but if you we know, but outside toilet, you we one of us. Like Andrews grabbing dope, don't act like you don't know, you know. Oh,